The show opens with our protagonist, Joan Girardi, who is a 16-year-old girl. She is sleeping peacefully at night until a mysterious voice suddenly calls her name, jolting her awake. To her surprise, no one is there, so she lies back down and tries to sleep again. The next morning, we see Joan's family gathering for breakfast in the living room. Her father, Will Girardi, is the police chief, while her mother, Helen, works at Joan's school. Also present are her younger brother, Luke, a science geek, and her older brother, Kevin, who has been paraplegic since a car accident. This morning, their parents are urging Kevin to consider getting a car, but he seems too discouraged to do anything. Meanwhile, Joan is in her room changing clothes when she suddenly notices an old man staring at her from outside. She panics and rushes downstairs to tell her family there's a pervert in the yard. They all hurry outside, but the old man is gone and there are no footprints to be found. When asked what he looked like, Joan says she doesn't remember his face but recalls he was wearing a long coat. She insists she is telling the truth, but her family dismisses it as a hallucination and returns inside. After some time, Joan is on her way to school on the bus when she notices another old man staring at her. This frightens her, but the poor girl is too terrified to say or do anything. Her attention is drawn to a young, cute boy who smiles at her. Joan immediately develops a crush on him and gently smiles back. After the bus stops, she gets off, and the cute guy also begins following her. They strike up a conversation, and Joan introduces herself, although he doesn't say his name. While the two are walking together, the boy apologizes for staring at her earlier from outside her window. This shocks Joan, who reveals that the guy was an old man, but he apologizes for the confusion and says he doesn't always look the same. Freaked out, Joan threatens to tell her dad, who is the police chief, but the boy doesn't seem scared and recounts details about Will's life, his birth date, career, and how he met his wife. He then shares personal facts about Joan, like her favorite color, favorite food, and even Kevin's car accident. Horrified, Joan asks who he is, and the boy shockingly reveals he is God, and he has known her even before she was born. But Joan doesn't believe this and calls him a weirdo before storming off from there. Later, Joan is attending class when she notices the mysterious boy staring at her from outside, which annoys her. After school, she heads home when the guy approaches her again. Joan threatens to give her dad his sketch, but he doesn't seem to care. He continues to insist that he is God and even reveals how Joan had promised to study hard and go to church if he let her older brother live, but didn't keep the promise. This finally convinces Joan, as nobody is supposed to know about this except her. She then nervously admits she has a crush on him, but he responds that the next time she sees him, he won't look like this. When Joan asks why he's there, God reveals that he wants her to do favors for him. He asks her to get a job at a place called Skylight Bookstore, which is nearby, but he doesn't tell her why and simply says that he'll drop by every now and then. This shocks Joan, and she tries to ask more questions, but he just walks away without answering. Sometime later, Joan arrives at the bookstore and notices the Help Wanted sign. However, she becomes too weirded out by the place and immediately leaves. The next day, Joan is in the school cafeteria when the lunch lady, who she realizes is God, suddenly asks why she didn't get the job. This scares Joan, and she realizes it's God again in a different form. Joan suggests discussing it somewhere private, but God responds that she should just do as he says to make things easier. In the next scene, Joan finally arrives at Skylight Bookstore and requests a job from the owner. The owner is hesitant to hire her, as she looks very young and doesn't have much knowledge about books. But Joan isn't willing to give up and keeps persisting, even saying she was sent by God. After some relentless effort, the owner finally agrees to hire her. Cut to some time later, the Girardi family is having breakfast when Kevin announces that he passed his driving test. His overjoyed parents offer to buy him a car, but Kevin refuses, saying he'll get a job and buy it himself. In the afternoon, Joan arrives at school when she is approached by an unfamiliar bus driver. He reveals how she sometimes looks in the mirror and practices French kissing. Joan quickly realizes it's God again and asks him to stop embarrassing her. God tells her she's been underachieving and it's time to stop wasting her potential. He urges her to enroll in the advanced placement chemistry course at school. This shocks Joan, as she isn't studious and has no interest in science, but God refuses to take no for an answer. Sometime later, Joan arrives at the AP chemistry class where her brother Luke is stunned to see her. She's then paired with a punk girl named Grace Polk and an introverted boy, Adam Rove. The next morning, when Kevin wakes up, Helen arrives and gives him a list of used cars. He explains that miracles do happen, but they must be the rules. And came to Joan. Because she is an instrument of God, bound by the limits of time and space. In the evening, we see Joan studying at home with Grace and Adam, the struggle to solve chemistry problems while Luke stays at it and laughs at them. Not long after, Joan's parents show up and Adam introduces himself to them. That Adam can help get Kevin a car. The boy agrees and reveals that his dad founded car that he can sell for an affordable price, which the next day, Helen surprises Kevin with the old car, and he's annoyed that she didn't let him do things. But Helen says if she did that, he'd just in his wheelchair and wouldn't do anything. She's and recalls the day he came home from the accident. He would ever feel normal again and promised him that he would. Helen says she intends to keep that promise no matter how difficult things get. This makes Kevin emotional, and he finally agrees to test drive the car, inviting his mom along as well. Later, the mother and son arrive at a drive-thru where a fast food worker flirts with Kevin. She urges him to come back again and asks for her name, Barbie. Kevin is flattered and flirts back a little before driving away. Elsewhere, God again, and expresses her surprise at the things he has been ordering her to do. She is annoyed, wondering why she had to join AP Chemistry when she isn't even interested. But God that AP Chemistry brought Adam into her life, who then told her mom about the impair. This eventually helped Kevin get his car, making a small change. God explains that he works in mysterious ways like this, rather than grand miracles. Later that night, Kevin invites Luke to go for a drive, and the two soon arrive at the same drive-thru, where Barbie once again flirts with Kevin. She thinks he's again, and jokes that it would be cheaper to just take her out on a date. Suddenly makes Kevin sad, and he says he's not available now. This upsets Barbie, and she goes to get their order. Then, Luke asks to tell the truth, maybe she will accept him. But Kevin tells her to shut up and not make it more complicated than they already are. In the next scene, Kevin wakes up from a nightmare and begins prompting his parents to rush to him. Helen proceeds to calm him, and the boy admits that his legs hurt for a brief moment, but it's probably just a dream. Helen, he points out that the doctor said the dreams like this and after his paralysis. The next morning, the family is gathering for breakfast when the doorbell rings. Joan opens it and Finn standing there with a package for her. Joan quickly realizes it is none other than God another task for her. After relucting the money the delivery, Joan checks the package and is shocked to see that it's how to play chess. On the other hand, Will arrives at the station, and we learn he is investigating a case involving a 3-year-old boy who went missing a few days ago. However, he is shocked to discover that his superiors have invited a psychic woman to help with the investigation. Will doesn't believe in that kind of thing, but he has no choice but to cooperate with the woman. Elsewhere, we see Helen at a doctor's office where she talks about Kevin's nightmare from yesterday. She mentions that he felt pain in his leg and wonders if there's a chance he might walk again. However, the doctor firmly explains that Kevin's back was broken in 3 places and the damage to his spinal cord is severe, so he will never be able to walk again. Upon hearing this, Helen grows emotional but says that maybe she just needed to hear it. Meanwhile, Joan is at school when she comes across God, this time in front of the cute boy again. He's annoyed that she didn't obey him and read the chess book. Joan suggests her brother Luke take her place instead, since he's smart and a nerd, but God refuses and sends her to the school basement for another task. With no other choice, Joan reluctantly obliges and heads downstairs. She soon comes across a group of students playing chess, and when the teacher notices her, he eagerly invites her to join them. On the other hand, the psychic woman arrives at the place where the child disappeared, along with the police team. She reveals that she can sense a white car and that a man used a puppy to lure the kid. She also mentions that she has seen a red barn in the countryside in her visions. Will is annoyed to hear this and doesn't want to spend police resources on an investigation based on her hunches. Still, he's forced to set his doubts aside and work with her. The scene then cuts to Joan, who is playing chess against the best player at her school. She has no idea what she's doing and randomly moves pieces without any real strategy. But, to everyone's shock, she unexpectedly ends up winning in just 6 moves. The teacher is impressed by her skills and starts calling her a genius. Meanwhile, at the police station, the psychic woman senses Will's hostility and decides to open up about an incident. She says that when she was 29, she died, but didn't see angels or an afterlife. However, For some reason, she came back to life, and the doctors explained that this wasn't uncommon for near-death survivors. She goes on to say that ever since then, she's been having dreams and visions that later came true. That's why she became a psychic, to help people with the powers she gained. However, Will isn't impressed by her story, and their conversation is interrupted by the arrival of his family, who have come to pick him up for dinner. Will introduces the psychic woman to his family, and she is particularly surprised to see Joan. She reveals that Joan has a special connection to the universe, which surprises everyone. Afterward, the psychic woman leans in close to Kevin's ear and whispers something to him that leaves him stunned. The next day, Joan is summoned to the principal's office, where her mom and the chess teacher are also present. To her surprise, they're all impressed by her skills and want her to represent the school in the regional chess tournament. Joan refuses, frustrated, saying she doesn't even know how to play chess, but the adults think that she's just joking and begin laughing, much to her annoyance. In the meantime, a man shows up at the station and shares a troubling story. He mentions a neighbor woman who lives alone and claims he saw her with a child a few days ago. She said the child was her nephew, so the man didn't think much of it at the time. However, he was horrified when he saw the same child's picture on the TV as a missing boy. With this new information, Will and his junior officer immediately head to the woman's house, where they indeed find a puppy. They begin asking her about her nephew, but the woman denies having one and claims she just babysits some children in the area. Will asks her more questions, but suddenly she pulls a knife and presses it to his throat, demanding that he leave. The junior officer quickly draws his gun and orders her to drop the knife. Reluctantly, the woman complies, and the officer arrests her on the spot. Next, Will notices the puppy scratching at one of the doors, so he breaks down the barrier and heads inside. There, he finally discovers the missing boy, who is playing peacefully and appears to be unharmed. That evening, the Girardi family is gathered for dinner, where Will brings up the missing child case, revealing that the kidnapper's car was indeed white. He mentions how the psychic got almost every detail wrong, except for the puppy and the white car, which he thinks is just a coincidence. She had misidentified the kidnapper as a man and mentioned a red barn, both of which turned out to be false. Helen, however, doesn't believe the psychic is a total fraud. Luke intervenes, explaining that it is all based on science and that the psychic simply has a heightened awareness of life's patterns. But suddenly, Kevin interrupts everyone, saying that the psychic had told him he would dance at his wedding. This unexpected revelation leaves everyone emotional, and the room falls into a heavy silence. They continue eating in silence, and the episode ends on this somber note. Subscribe and leave 1,000 likes or 100 comments if you want us to continue with the next part.